In this video, we will learn the basics of Apex in Salesforce. This is what we will cover in this video. First, what is Apex? Second, what types of components can we create in Salesforce using Apex? These are the components that we can create: classes, triggers, and interfaces. Third, what are the basic building blocks of a class? Fourth, how can we write, compile, and execute the Apex code in Salesforce? So, what is Apex? Apex is an object-oriented programming language which can be compiled and executed only in Salesforce. Apex is used to write backend logic of an application. Unlike other development platforms like Java, .NET, and Node.js, the Apex is tightly coupled with the Salesforce database. So whenever we want to perform a database operation like SOQL or DML, we don't need to create database connection, write and execute separate logic to map Apex code to database tables, and then after performing the operation, closing the database connection, etc. So none of these operations are needed in Apex. If we want to fetch data, we just need to write and execute the SQL statement. And if we want to perform DML operation, we just need to execute the DML statements. Now, what types of components can we create in Salesforce using Apex? First, classes. Second, triggers. Third, interfaces. Since Apex is an object-oriented programming language, you need to create classes to make your code executable. However, there is a special type of component, that is trigger, which is made specifically for database tables, that is objects in Salesforce. These get executed automatically by Salesforce for different database operations like create, edit, and delete. By creating our custom code in the form of triggers, we can bind custom logic to these different database operations. The third type of component that we can create in Salesforce is interface. Interfaces are not executable. However, they are used to implement classes that follow a type of framework to perform certain business operations in a certain way or certain sequence. So, what are the basic building blocks of a class? The first is the class definition. Here we define a class. In the definition, we need to specify the access modifier. Possible access modifiers could be private, protected, public, and global. Since private and protected access modifiers are not commonly used, we will just focus on public and global. Public access modifiers are default ones that should be used. This allows the class and its members to be accessible within the same namespace. Now, what is a namespace? A namespace can be considered your Salesforce org, which could be either sandbox or production instance. A class which is created with public access modifier in your sandbox or production org will be accessible from the other classes within the same org, that is the same sandbox or production instance. The global access modifier should be used when we want to make our class members accessible outside of the namespace, that is outside of the Salesforce instance. For example, if we are creating an API for an external system to consume, that class needs to be a global one. Once you specify the access modifier, you need to specify the class keyword, which should be followed by the name of the class. Now, the class name should be unique across the Salesforce instance. Once you have defined the class, you need to define the class members. The class members could be either variables or methods, which are alternatively called as functions. You can create following types of variables in a class: the primitive data types, which could be integer, string, boolean, date, and id; collections, which could be set, list, or map; generic S object, and standard or custom objects; generic objects; and then the user defined data types, which are classes. Classes could be outer or inner classes. Inner classes are also called as wrapper classes. The variables will also have access modifiers. These are the access modifiers for variables. Private. These variables will be accessible only to the methods of the same class. Protected variables will be accessible in the same class along with the class which is inheriting this class. Public variables will be accessible outside of the class as well. And the global variables will be accessible outside of the namespace, which is outside of the instance as well. The other type of class member is method. Methods also have access modifiers similar to the class variables: private, protected, public, and global, and they work in the same way as they work for the class variables. So we will not go into those details again. When we define methods in Apex, apart from the access modifier, we need to specify the return type. The return type could be any data type that we talked about in the previous section when we talked about the class variables. Now let's try creating a new class and try executing it. To create a new class, we need to log into Salesforce. For this, we will recommend having your free Salesforce Developer Edition account. If you do not have it, you can create it by following the steps shown in the video that's appearing in the I button link. Once you log into your Salesforce instance, you need to launch your developer console. For this example, we will create a class named Calculator. We will create three variables of integer type, num1, num2 and result. Next, we will create a method named doAdd. In this method, we will write the logic, perform the addition and save the result in the result variable. Now, using the execute anonymous feature, we will execute this method and do the addition. In the execute anonymous window, we will first create object of the class calculator. Then we will assign values to num1 and num2 to perform the addition on. Then we will call the method doAdd, which will perform the addition and store the result of that addition in the variable result. At the end, using the statement system.debug, we will print the result in the Apex logs. Once we are done with the code, we will click on the execute button while clicking on the checkbox open log. This will open the Apex log where we can apply the filter debug only and see the result of the addition. If you are new to Salesforce development and not sure how does the Salesforce Developer Console work, you can click on the I button link that's appearing on the top right of the screen to watch our video where we explain all the major features of the Developer Console which we have used in this walkthrough.
If you like this video, please do like and share. If you want to receive more of such informative content, please hit the subscribe button. If you want us to make content related to any Salesforce or Salesforce related topic, please do let us know through comments.